The night was cold, and the wind whispered secrets through the trees. Chiamaka sat by her window, staring into the darkness, her heart heavy with thoughts she knew were forbidden. Father Chike was not like the other priest. He was young, handsome, and carried an air of quiet strength that made the women in the village steal secret glances at him. His voice was deep and soothing, his sermons filled with wisdom, but it was his eyes that haunted Chiamaka the most. Those dark, piercing eyes that seemed to see into her very soul. She had fought the temptation for months, praying fervently each night, but the more she prayed, the stronger her desires grew. It was as if something inside her had been awakened, something wild and uncontrollable. One evening after Mass, she waited for him outside the church. "Father Chike, may I speak with you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He turned to her and smiled. "Of course, my child. How can I help you?" The way he called her, my child, sent shivers down her spine, but she maintained her composure. "I need guidance, Father. Can we talk in private?" Chike hesitated, but he was a man of God. He saw no harm in counseling one of his parishioners. He led her to his office inside the church, and they sat across from each other. Chiamaka leaned forward slightly, allowing her shawl to slip off her shoulders, revealing smooth, dark skin. She spoke softly, her voice laced with emotions she did not bother to hide. "Father, what do you do when your heart desires something it cannot have?" Chike cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. "We must pray, Chiamaka. We must ask God to help us overcome temptation." But she did not want to overcome it. She wanted to embrace it. The days turned into weeks, and Chiamaka did everything she could to draw him closer. She found excuses to visit him, bringing him meals, touching his hand just a little longer than necessary, looking into his eyes with an intensity that made his resolve weaken. And one night, under the cover of darkness, the inevitable happened. It was supposed to be just once. A moment of weakness. But sin is like fire, it consumes everything in its path. What started as a single act soon became a hidden affair, one they both knew could never be discovered. Then, the unthinkable happened. Chiamaka missed her period. She waited, hoping it was just a delay, but the days turned into weeks, and her fears were confirmed. She was carrying Father Chike's child. Panic set in. She knew the consequences of her actions, but she had not prepared for this. When she told Chike, his face turned pale. "You have to get rid of it," he said in a hushed voice, his hands shaking. "No one must ever know." Chiamaka was horrified. "No. I cannot. What if something happens to me? What if?" "Nothing will happen. I know someone who can help," he said urgently. "We will be discreet. No one will ever find out." She was torn between fear and uncertainty. She thought of running away, of keeping the child and facing whatever may come. But Chike did not relent. He pleaded, cajoled, even threatened, until at last, she gave in. They visited an old traditionalist in a hidden part of the village. The woman gave Chiamaka some herbs, instructing her on how to use them. That night, as she took the bitter concoction, she felt a sharp pain tear through her belly. She clutched her stomach, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Then came the bleeding. At first, it was a trickle, then a rush, then a flood. She screamed, but it was too late. Adigwe, her closest friend, was with her in her final moments. "Chike did this, he made me," she whispered before her body went still. News of Chiamaka's death spread like wildfire. At first, Chike denied any involvement, but the villagers were not convinced. Some had seen them together near the traditionalist shrine. Then, Adigwe spoke. She told the elders everything Chiamaka had confessed. On Sunday morning, as Chike stood at the pulpit, preaching about righteousness, the church doors burst open. An angry mob stormed in, dragging him out into the street. Sinner! Liar! Murderer, the villagers shouted as they pulled him towards the market square. He barely had time to plead for mercy before the first stone struck him. Then another. And another. The once revered priest, the man of God who had fallen to temptation, now lay lifeless on the dusty ground, his sins laid bare for all to see. And so, the story of Chiamaka and Father Chike ended in tragedy, a cautionary tale of forbidden desires and their deadly consequences. But the echoes of their sins would live on, whispered in the winds, carried through the generations, a reminder that some temptations, once embraced, lead only to destruction. Moral lessons. Actions have consequences. Yielding to temptation can lead to irreversible tragedies. Secrets and lies destroy lives. Dishonesty and cover-ups only make matters worse in the long run. Respect sacred vows. When commitments, especially spiritual ones, are broken, they bring about grave consequences. Choices shape destinies. A single wrong decision can alter lives forever. The wages of sin is destruction. Engaging in deceit and immorality often leads to downfall. This story serves as a warning. Some temptations may seem pleasurable, but they often lead to devastating consequences. The best way to avoid destruction is to resist them from the beginning.